Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The program on the main stage continues. We have a super exciting talk now with Andy about prompt evaluation. So Andy is an AI researcher, founder of CorticalLabs, and working also at Explosion AI. And we are super happy to have him. So yeah, let's applaud him.
All right, hey everyone, how you going? This talk is promptly evaluating prompts. So if you're meant to see a different talk, you're in the wrong room. People are still coming in, so I guess I'll warm up the crowd a little bit. So I always start all my presentations with a joke. So here's one, never been heard before. This is new, just for you. I came up with it the night before we left. So there's this AI researcher, and he's just died, and he's ended up in hell. And he sees the devil there, and the devil is giving him a tour, because of course, every new arrival in hell gets a tour. So he's taking him around and showing the different rooms, and they walk into this room, and in the room is Sam Altman. And he's got these wires coming out of his head. He's like half merged with a machine. He's hybrid. You know, he's like half human, half machine. And all his wildest dreams are coming true. He's living his fantasies. He's giving presentations. He's flying like a bird, whatever it is. And the AI researcher looks in the room and says, hey, you know, that doesn't seem so bad. And the devil says, oh, no, no, no. This isn't the room we used to punish Sam Altman. This is the room we used to punish the AIs. Okay, no, I got to clap. Thank you, thank you. All right, all right. So the title of this talk actually should have been Bayesian Thunderdome, but I didn't know the visual concept of the talk when I submitted it, so I got a really dry title. Imagine it was called Bayesian Thunderdome. Okay, so you got a bunch of prompts because you love LLMs or you love Stable Diffusion or whatever it is, and you need to know which one is better. And right now, often, at least when I started doing this, and I've seen a lot of other people do it, they just kind of try things. And so it's sort of like trial and error and sort of vibes. But I want to do a little bit of audience participation. So maybe raise your hand if you've been doing, you've written a prompt recently. Yeah, yeah, okay. Whoa, that's, I guess this is the right place for it. Okay, maybe someone over there. We've got our helper. He'll bring you a microphone. You can pick someone. No, he's just, oh, this is an AV thing. Okay. Well, while we're waiting, we'll go, okay. How about you? Have you done a prompt? Yeah, no. Yes, behind Vincent, yes. Yes, I'm talking to you. Yes, blonde lady.
Like any prompt?
Any prompt.
Okay, this is embarrassing, but I also to write birthday cards.
Yeah, really? Were they good?
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Was it for friends you like or friends you don't like?
For friends I like.
Nice. So how did you get it to write in a good style?
I just posted the personality, or not the personality, a birthday card for a friend this age, and I'm giving this gift. Put in a joke or something.
Amazing.
Yeah, the joke didn't really work.
No, you know, LLMs don't really do humor very well. It's the thing. There needs more research into this. So, did you do trial and error, or did you do anything clever with picking the prompt?
No, well, I just did one prompt, and then it gave me something, and I could just write it down. One-hit
wonder. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, true story. I actually had a large language model generate part of a speech for one of my friend's weddings. So there you go. But this was before they were good, and everyone was really drunk, so it was very funny. Okay, maybe we do one more. Okay, how about down there, curly hair, brown curly hair? You can pick one. Helper can pick one. Who doesn't want to? Someone else. Come on. Who did a prompt? Put up your hand. Yeah, we're going to pick on you. Nobody's putting their hand up now. They're like, oh, I'm going to be picked on. Oh, here we go. We got one. He's keen. He's keen.
Yeah, I had an issue where I want to write a piece of code, and I asked it to write a piece of code, but it wrote it different than expected.
Yeah.
I had an idea of part of it.
Get the LLM to do your job for you. I like it.
And then I'd read about this this decision discussion or something, and you had to tell okay, I thought you would go that way. Can you have a conversation between 3 seniors reviewing a piece of code, which is either that way or that way? It was very nice.
Pretend to be 3 experts. I like it. Very nice. See? And did that technique work better?
Yes, very well actually, because the one expert took the suggestion from the AI, the one expert took my ID, and the third one came with a middle ground, which I might have thought of after a couple of hours thinking, but it actually came out to something new.
That's very good. That's very good. But do you know objectively if it was better?
No.
There we go. Okay, so that's why you need this talk. Okay, so here it is. We have generative models, and they are hard to evaluate objectively. So looking at a prompt, knowing if you'll get a good answer, you'll get a good birthday card, you'll get a program that works, is very, very difficult, alchemy. Secondly, even if you're trying to evaluate the outputs, so for example, a piece of writing or a picture, it's hard to say, you know, on an absolute scale how good this thing is. And it's much, much easier to say, I'm going to choose between two things. So that gives us this sort of interesting problem formulation. So we have many choices. We have sort of paired comparisons. So instead of picking one thing like you would in a multi-arm bandit or something like that, we have two things that we compare. Finally, we have noisy outcomes. So obviously, if we compare two things, even if one is better, it won't win all the time. And finally, we're going to assume transitivity here. This is normally pretty reasonable, but it just means if A beats B and B beats C, then we assume A is going to beat C, and we can get a lot of performance improvement because of that. And there's some extensions where we don't have to assume this, but they're not super important. We also want to add new options at any time. So if we're iteratively working, we might find some inspiration, we might change the present we bought, whatever it is. And we need to add those at a later stage. And if we're doing something simple like comparing them and just counting how many times they've won, you have a problem, which is you kind of have to start with all the things you wanted to compare from scratch. But we really do also want to add late entries at any time or remove things that you don't like later. So you want it to be an iterative process where you're constantly comparing, adding things, kind of you have a stable of things you like, you introduce some new ideas, and you want to see how they shape up. And we want to do that all fluidly. So there is a solution to this problem that is both mathematically elegant and fairly well theoretically supported. So I'm calling it the Glick-Best algorithm, which was developed recently. So you're hearing about it here first. It's a novel. And it's basically this thing called Glicko, or Glicko ratings, plus an exploration maximization step. And I'm going to explain how those two things work, how those two things work together, and why they'll make your prompts better. So, I also have to add that all these images are generated with stable diffusion. I think most are SDXL, so there you go. It blows my mind you can get photos of like movies that never existed. Like you can imagine like something cool is happening there, like maybe there's a story, but there you go. So, Glicko. Developed by a statistician named Mark Glickman, thank you, and there are two fundamental parts to the Glicko rating. You have your rating, which is a number that's like 1,500 or something. It's a close relative of the ELO scoring system, which is used in chess and several other sports. You also have a ratings deviation. So that is basically the standard deviation of your rating, how sure we are that you have a particular, or a player has a particular skill. And finally, Glicko has a closed form update, which is just really useful because it means we don't have to do any complex sort of stepwise, like iterative optimization to update Glicko ratings after someone wins or loses. So Glicko is a Bradley-Terry model, which is jargon, but intuitively, or not so intuitively, the odds are some kind of, here we go, power 10 function of the difference between the rating of J and the rating of I, or the two players. So rating IJ is the rating of your two players. This can be, when you look at it, a little bit hard to see the intuition behind, but when you see a table, it's very clear. So on the left, we've got the rating difference between sort of two options, and then you have the odds of winning, and then you have the percentage chance of winning. So you can see at a 100-point difference, you should be, the sort of leader should be winning 64% of the time. A 200-point difference should be 76% of the time. And you can also see where this power 10 comes in. So intuitively, a 400-point difference is a 10-to-1 odds, and a 800-point difference is 100-to-1 odds. So this has got a kind of, it's a logit, basically. And finally, we have a way to update ratings and also updating their uncertainty. So we've got our basis, which is we can rate things and we can know how uncertain we are about how good something is. But there's still a missing piece. And that missing piece is that the glyco system itself doesn't tell us what two things we should compare next. So what we really want to do is choose something that's going to do clever things most of the time. And this is a pure exploration problem. So often algorithms have exploration or exploitation. This is your classic trade-off and things like multi-arm bandits or whatnot. In this case, there is no particular cost to comparing two things or two bad things. We would just like to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So this takes on a very sort of pure exploration formulation. So the answer is BDSM, which is Bayesian decisions using sequential matches. Well, we are in Amsterdam, so I needed a joke for that. So the key idea here is that intuitively, if we have two things that have similar ratings, we're most unsure about who will win. So finding out the outcome of that comparison will give us the most information. Secondly, we would like to know who's best. So that means we want to compare who's best to the person who would be most likely to be sort of second best or most likely to be best were it not for the first one existing. So we want to play that against the second most likely to be first. And this is where the sort of Bayesian magic comes in. Because this is very subtle. The runner-up, so the thing with the second highest rating, is not the one with the second highest probability of being first. And I'll show you how that works. So here we have the sort of bell curves of three options visualized. So we have the blue player, the green player, and the purple player. And in this case, it's very clear that the blue is the presumptive favorite, although there is uncertainty there. It's fairly clear that the second best, so to speak, is this green one. And then we have this purple one who's in third. And so we would try and play off the blue one and the green one in this case to find out more about who's really best and remove some of that uncertainty. But what about this situation? So this is where we're much more uncertain about the purple player. So clearly the blue player is still the presumptive favorite. But which one is sort of the second highest probability of being first, the green player or the purple player? When you look at where the probability mass actually lies, this purple player has a much higher chance of being number two than the green player because we're much more uncertain about how good it is. So you can kind of see when we're more uncertain about something, it says, oh, there's a possibility that this one could actually be the best. So in this case, GlickBest, the algorithm, would play off the blue one against the purple one and learn kind of as much information as possible about which one is better. So practically, what does it look like? And we can do sort of some empirical head-to-head comparisons about how this performs. So here we have an illustrative situation. So we have 8 options. There's an 100-point rating spread between them, so each option kind of going up the ladder is 100 points higher than the next, and that means it has a 60-something% chance of beating the one sort of above it or below it. And we have 3 kind of reasonable options. So one is random pairs. So that means you just took a random pair of things and you see which one wins, and then you just count up who has the highest score at the end, like who won the most matchups. And if you did that, after 35 comparisons, you would actually choose the true best 40% of the time, or a little bit less than 40% of the time. You could do a single elimination tournament where you pair things up and the winner stays on, the loser drops out, and you could do that several times over and record which player wins the tournaments kind of most times in a row. And if you did it that way, you would choose the true best about 60% of the time. And if you were to use the GlickBest algorithm, you're getting as high as 80. So it's significantly better than a sort of simple-minded tournament. And part of the reason is because it's not wasting any time comparing things that aren't going to possibly be the best. Because it really focuses on learning information about the best and second best presumptive player over and over again, which does make it a little bit greedy. So the other huge benefits of doing this, which I think is, even if it wasn't more accurate, this would be huge, which is it allows late entrance. So if you're doing any iterative development at any time, you just add a new option, you set its skill to 1,500, or its rating to 1,500, you set its ratings deviation to like 300, so you say, I don't really know much about this thing, and will naturally get folded into comparisons. You get ratings for every option. So even though it's not optimized for a full ranking, it still does a very good job of giving you an idea of still what the lay of the land is. And you don't get that out of a lot of other approaches. And that sort of entire ratings list is updated each time you have comparisons. And then finally, you get a ranking probability. So you can ask, what is the probability that this thing is first? And you could keep comparing until that thing says you're 95% confident that this thing is first, or 99, or whatever it is. So it gives you a natural stopping condition as well. There's some extensions and variants that you could be interested in. One is to use Thompson sampling instead of this second highest probability of rank 1 approach, BDSM. Many-way comparisons. Currently, this is set up for doing A-B comparisons, so comparing two things at a time. And you might want to maximize your total ranking information if you care about the whole ranking, not just the thing that's best. And there are some natural extensions to do that. And you also might want to spread the load a little bit. So if you're worried that various things might fatigue, or like if you're actually comparing physical objects, testing them might actually damage them, or they might be players, they actually get tired. You can't compare the best thing with the other thing like all the time over and over again. So you might want to model that. But in the case of prompts, luckily prompts never get tired. We can just keep making cool pictures. So some observations. GlickBest is kind of sticky, and this is good and bad because it's really trying to squeeze out every little bit of information it can get from every comparison. But that means often it will spend a lot of time just comparing the presumptive favorite with like the thing that is obviously second best, because that's all it cares about. You could spread that out a little bit. And there's no look ahead. So in the very low comparison situation, like if you have 8 options and you're only going to do 7 comparisons, this doesn't do much better than a single tournament, simply because without any look ahead, you can't do the smartest things. But it also means it's an anytime algorithm. So wherever you stop it, you'll get a reasonable answer. You don't have to, ahead of time, know how many rounds you're going to compare for. So where can I get GlickBest, you're asking me? Because you all do prompt stuff, and you all need to compare your prompts objectively and efficiently. So there is a GitHub repo with a minimal reference implementation. There's the URL there. Send me a line if you end up using it for something. I'd love to hear it. It was also in the Explosion AI Prodigy product. There is a whole suite of prompt engineering tools, of which this is a small corner because of the amazing work of the Prodigy team. So you can try that out right now. This is an example. You can set up this LLM tournament with your different LLM prompts, and you'll get an interface like this. If you've used this product before, you'll know what I'm talking about. Cool. So this is a very tight talk, so I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you, please. Oh, we got one. I feel like I should be more funny while this is happening. Oh well. I line up 2 jokes next time.
So example for the birthday cards, how would you actually apply this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Imagine that I have sort of 3 prompts. And the first prompt is write me a birthday. We'll call it the vanilla general. So we'll say, write me a birthday card. They are this year's old, and I got them flowers. And that would be very dry. You can imagine a second one, which would be like, I love my friends so much, and I really want to tell them how much I love them, and I want you to be really emotional about writing a card, and I got them flowers, and this year's old, but I want them to feel like they're really young and really excited that they're, And then you want another one, which is like, okay, I want it to be quirky and funny. So you might write a prompt, which is the quirky, funny prompt, which is like, write me a fun birthday card with lots of puns and humor. They are turning this age. And then you would say, okay, which one is better? Which one do I like most? And so just by looking at them, you can't really tell. Maybe the jokes are bad. Maybe the emotional one comes out as insincere, something like that. So then you would get from those 3 prompts generations, and you would compare them. So the algorithm would pick a pair for you to compare, and you'd say, oh, I like this one. And then you'd say, I like this other one. And then you'd keep going, and eventually, the one that was best, that you preferred the most, would have the highest ranking. And then you could go on to build your billion-dollar birthday card generation startup. I hope that made sense. Yes, okay, good. We have time for heaps of questions. I'll probably finish early. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for your presentation and also for the Stable Diffusion generated pictures.
Hey, yeah.
So my doubt is about a bit, where does the Bayesian part comes in? Because it was a bit unclear whether the distributions you were showing were like, for instance, posterior distributions. And if they are, how do you define your priors?
Yeah, excellent question, excellent question. So let's go back to that slide because I think this is the one you were talking about, right? So this is a posterior distribution. In this case, your posterior is 3 normal distributions over the ratings of your individual choices. Furthermore, in this particular case, it's a Bayesian update, right? So not only is this the posterior now, so not only is this the prior for the next round. So this is the posterior after a number of comparisons. And when you do the next comparison, you'll update your beliefs, and you'll end up with a posterior over ratings, which will be your new prior, et cetera, et cetera. So this is both the posterior after the last comparison and the prior for the next comparison, because it's a Bayesian update. Secondly, in this particular thing, if you were to write out a Bradley-Terry model and build like a proper, say, Markov chain Monte Carlo sampler, you would not have exact bell curve posteriors. The reason why they're bell curves is because one of the main kind of clever approximations in the Glicko approach is to say, well, okay, we're going to assume that our posteriors are Gaussian shaped. And this is not exactly a correct assumption, but it's an excellent approximation. And it also makes prior specification extremely easy. So I was going on about how easy it is to introduce new entrants. If you have a prompt you like, you can just bring it in at like a 1,700 rating, and you can throw in a reasonably large spread on it, and it will start getting compared to the best thing right away. So it's very easy to put in whatever beliefs you want. And in fact, if you have some reason to believe that there is some shift in some shift in ratings over time, which it could be quite likely if you're comparing things which actually age or become less popular or whatever it is, you can just go through and add more ratings deviation to every option. And that will increase your uncertainty across the board, and all the questions you would ask would still be coherent. So one of the amazing things about having such a simple posterior approximation is that it's effective, but also very easy to specify. Yeah, that's an excellent question, though. Thank you. I have actually one more joke, which is we're all Glickos now.
I'm not entirely sure which one you meant to talk about, but I can think of 2 types of ways of talking about strategies. You can have like a very simple, specific sentence, 3 different versions for a specific problem, or you can have this general idea, like I'm going to try a quirky one, I'm going to try an emotional one, I'm going to try a bland, vanilla one, or very specific sentences. Does this strategy work for both? Can you also do it with vaguer strategies to evaluate if the strategy as a whole is better than another?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really good question. So maybe I will sort of talk about variance. So you just gave me an idea. You're a smart man. One of the things that's a really big, hot thing is hierarchical Bayesian models. So this is very, very flat in that no information is shared between prompts. So if I have two prompts that are very similar but for a small change, we expect if one is good, then the other would also be good, and there's no sort of information transfer there. So you could imagine a hierarchical system where you have a model and it says, okay, so I have various different like themes, and the theme could be like approach or an emotion or something. And then within the themes, I draw a skill. And then for each option within the theme, I draw like a skill noise factor. So I got per class or per category parameter. So you could absolutely imagine a fairly natural extension of this, which has like uses a hierarchical Bayesian model to give you both category skills and then also individual skills. And that would be a super cool extension to do. So I think the answer is, in its raw form, all options are equal. There's no information shared between them, but there would be natural extensions which bundle them up into categories and themes. Super good question, though.
Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we got another one. Man, this is like high quality audience, I have to say. You all are the best. I'm glad I left time for questions.
Hi. Yeah, thanks a lot for the talk. It was amazing. But I have one question. So, writing 3 prompts sounds like a lot of work. Could you see like an option to just write one and let it, let's say, create some creative new prompts that you then, so from like a simple scenario setting, create maybe 20 different prompts, and then when it drops off one of the prompt to let's say baseline level, you just kick it out, create a new one based on the initial scenario, something like that?
Yeah, thank you for coming. This is like the masterclass in asking good questions. The questions are better than my talk. So, yeah, one of the absolutely awesome things about this approach, again with late entrants, is that it's very easy to bolt on a thing, which like you might write a meta prompt, which is like, given 3 prompts, write me some new prompts. Right, so the input would be your prompts and the output would be new prompts. And we were just playing with this like for a demo right before. So it works really well, and also the late entrant thing allows you to just throw some more prompts into the mix, maybe that you didn't even write, that you generated, and then start evaluating them right away. So it's really harmonistic with any way you get prompts, whether you write them yourself, you use LLMs to generate them from other prompts, or maybe like just from nothing. And you may have, if anything, one of the things that makes this so important is that it's really quick to generate prompts, but now you've got too many prompts. Like you could ask GPT to give you like a dozen prompts, but what are you going to like click through, like cut and paste each one individually and be like, is this one good? And you generate one and you're like, I don't know, seems okay. So this gives you a really, really rational and efficient way to then say, actually, which one do I want to use for my product or service or whatever it is, or my research paper, as the case may be. But man, thank you for your questions. This is so good. And I will say, if you want to see a demo of it running, with some of those ideas, you should go to the explosion booth. It's just on the left-hand side in the middle. You can use it live for the implementation of the algorithm. Okay, we have time for one more question. Last question.
Is there some? Yeah.
That's great. Sorry for making you run. Really simple question compared to the others. Could you actually put up the URLs again so we can take a look at those?
Yeah. That's an easy one to answer, but the most important one. Yeah. There we go. You can take photos of that one. Andy Kitchen Glick Best. Glick Best, that's the name of the algorithm. That's the name of the repo. Don't wear it out. And then, people are still taking photos? Okay. And I will actually end on a joke, because I thought of the B joke that I didn't use. So I do have 2 jokes, in fact. And no more cameras out, I see. Okay, so the last one is Produ.g features prompt engineering. You can also take a photo of that. Okay, so final closing joke. How many large language models does it take to change a light bulb? 1 to write the prompt, and a human gig worker to actually go and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.